Hi, I'm Elaine. On my 33rd birthday, I sat alone at a table meant for 6. I wore heels I'd never liked, poured a glass of wine no one came to drink, and tried to convince myself the empty chairs were temporary. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mother. You're not our priority right now. They didn't forget. That was the worst part. They chose something else. They made plans without me, using the money I'd given them, skipped my dinner to celebrate my brother instead. Or maybe the real question is, why would you? I'd arrived 15 minutes early, just as the sun slipped behind the Denver skyline, washing the sidewalk in amber light. The air carried a light chill, enough to justify the long sleeves of my dress. It wasn't glamorous, but it was deliberate, the kind of outfit that says, I tried. I showed up. The hostess checked her list and smiled. Party of 6? Yes, I said, rubbing the edge of a folded napkin between my fingers. Aileen, I made the reservation last week. She led me to a table by the front window. 6 chairs, crisp white place settings, a single votive candle trembling at the center. I chose the seat facing the entrance. The waiter paused beside me. Do you like a few minutes, or are the others running late? I'll wait, I said too quickly. He nodded and moved on. I glanced at my phone. 6:47 p.m. nothing. I told myself not to spiral. Zanaya was always late, fashionably so in her own mind. Curtis lost track of time like it was a hobby. And Mom never arrived early unless it was for someone else. I nudged my fork, then straightened it, then fixed it again. I'd chosen this restaurant carefully. Quiet, familiar, affordable, but thoughtful. A place that said you matter enough for planning. I scrolled through my phone, pretending to be occupied. A work email, a sale from a store I stopped shopping at years ago. Then my screen lit up again. Mom, I opened the message immediately. You're not our priority right now. Enjoy your dinner. No happy birthday. No explanation. It's just 13 words, practiced and clean, like they'd been decided on together. I read it once, then again and again. This wasn't an accident. It was intentional. The waiter returned, this time holding a small wrapped box. Someone left this for you earlier, he said. They said it was from your family. I thanked him with the kind of polite smile meant to shut down conversation. The wrapping was neat, minimalist, matte gold. No bow. Exactly Zanaya's taste. Inside was a pale blue silk scarf. My stomach dropped. I knew this scarf. I'd bought it for Mom last Christmas, same brand, same stitching. Even the tiny snag near the edge where her ring had caught the fabric. I found the card beneath the tissue paper. Happy birthday from all of us, but faintly beneath the ink. I could see my own handwriting last year's. Love you always, Mom. They hadn't even used a new card. It's just written over the old one, as if memory worked that way, as if erasing me were that simple. I folded the scarf back into the box. My hands didn't shake, but my breathing did. At the table beside me, a couple sang softly to each other, celebrating an anniversary. Glasses clinked. Laughter rose from the bar in warm, careless waves. And I sat there at a table set for 6, finally understanding what it meant to be deliberately left behind. The world didn't pause. It never does. I lifted my wine glass and took a slow sip. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. There's no collapse, no dramatic unraveling, just a heaviness settling inside me. Dense and final, like concrete curing where something softer used to be. Being excluded enough times does that to you. Eventually it stops surprising you. I thought about birthdays where my presence felt optional. It's the ones where Zanaya gave a speech and forgot my name. Or where I became the designated photographer, always there, rarely included. This one was different. This one was mine. And they chose, deliberately, not to come. I stayed a while longer, watching the streetlights flick on one by one, as if the city were gently closing its eyes. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out a sticky note. I'd brought it for something mundane, a grocery reminder, maybe. It found a better purpose. 5 words. That was all it took. I left a 20 under my plate, more than enough for the wine, and walked out quietly. No goodbye to the waiter. No last look at my phone. On the table, beside untouched bread and the recycled gift box, sat the note. Thank you. No more seats. By the time I reached my apartment, Denver had gone still. Outside my window, the sky clung to its last traces of blue before giving in completely to night. I dropped my purse on the counter, slipped off my shoes, and placed the sticky note I'd left at the restaurant beside the fruit bowl I never bothered to fill. The apartment still smelled faintly of hairspray and anticipation. I didn't turn on the lights. The city glow was enough to move through my own disappointment. I poured a glass of water I wouldn't finish and sat on the edge of the couch, posture careful, as if I were still making room for someone else. My phone buzzed. I ignored it at first, hoping it was nothing, a calendar reminder, a spam notification. But something under my ribs tightened. Instagram. Zanaya had posted a photo. My thumb hovered. I knew better. Clicked anyway. The image loaded slowly, then it landed like a blow to the throat. They were all there. Velma, Zanaya, Curtis, even Uncle Ray, who hadn't been invited anywhere since the Will incident. They stood outside the Marina restaurant in Boulder, champagne glasses raised, faces bright and effortless. Curtis was front and center, arms spread wide like a local hero. In his hand a set of keys, the motorcycle emblem unmistakable. The caption read, "Celebrating the Dreamer." He finally made it happen. My stomach twisted. I zoomed in. Velma wore the same pale blue scarf, the one they'd handed me hours earlier. Curtis's wrist was a watch. Sleek, expensive, instantly recognizable. The same model he'd sent me 2 months ago, asking if it was too much. I'd told him not to buy it. He'd laughed and said he couldn't afford it anyway. And yet, I set the phone down and stared at my reflection in the dark screen, as if it might blink back at me. Then I opened my banking app. Last Tuesday, $1,500 transferred to Curtis. He'd said it was rent. He'd cried, "You're going to kick me out, Aylin. I don't know what I'll do." He wasn't afraid. He was shopping. The phone slipped from my hand onto the couch. I felt nothing sharp. No heat behind my eyes. It's just a stillness. Like I'd stepped outside myself and was watching the scene from the ceiling. They hadn't simply left me out. They'd funded the celebration with my money. They'd toasted my absence and paid for it with my generosity. I stood and walked to the table. My laptop was still open from that morning, when I'd tried to book a reservation large enough for people who never bothered to respond. I opened a new document and typed a title. Support unreciprocated, line by line. I added what I could remember. Car loan relief $2,800, mortgage bridge payments $5,200. Emergency dental work for Zia's son, $600. Motorcycle celebration, unknowingly funded by me, $1,200. No receipts, no gratitude, no invitations. I copied Zanaya's photo and pasted it beside the last entry. Then I opened a new tab and searched selective family amnesia, just to see if someone else had found a better name for this. My phone buzzed again, a forwarded voicemail from Velma. I didn't listen. I let the notification sit while I stared out the window at the slow crawl of headlights below. Somewhere, people were choosing each other, celebrating milestones, holding space. Mine had made their choice. This is what they chose, I whispered into the room. Let them live with it. Morning arrived quietly, as if the world were trying not to intrude. I woke without an alarm. Pale light spilled through the half-closed blinds, cold and unwelcoming. The apartment, still immaculate from hours spent avoiding feeling, looked staged for a guest who never came. I didn't reach for my phone. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my suitcase in the corner, still packed from the weekend I'd canceled to help Velma fix a leaking pipe. She'd said she'd tried calling Curtis first, but you know how boys are. I remembered the trip I didn't take, people who would have noticed if I was missing. I remembered smiling and saying, "It's okay, Mom, I'll come." It was never okay. Just hadn't found the words to say it out loud. At the kitchen table, I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet from the night before. I added a new tab and typed the title, Emotional Overdrafts. Then I began cataloging not just the transfers and reimbursements, but the moments I had emptied myself for them. Canceled New Mexico trip, Curtis's car broke down. Thanksgiving catering and acknowledged, unpaid. Zenia's baby shower decor, last-minute ask, thanks only on Facebook. Velma's emergency dental bill, promised repayment, never received. No tears, just facts. There's a difference between sadness and clarity. Sadness curls you up. Clarity sits you upright and demands receipts. My mind wandered. There was Zinnia's wedding. I'd been seated near the back, beside the catering intern and someone's ex. When she raised her glass for the toast, she said, "To my amazing family," and skipped my name, mispronouncing it anyway. Long I, like I was a +1. Christmas Eve, Velma asked me to just help in the kitchen real quick, while everyone posed for photos by the tree. 20 minutes later, I emerged with a tray of roasted vegetables and heard Uncle Ray murmur, "Oh, you were here?" Always there, never counted. Subtle difference. Sharp. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. Mara. "Hey, just a heads up. My aunt ran into your mom yesterday. Velma told people you're exaggerating making drama. Said you've always been a bit much." I set it down slowly. So that was the story now. Not just erased, but rewritten. My silence wasn't just ignored, it was weaponized. I thought of every gathering I'd attended out of guilt. Every birthday where I took the photos instead of appearing in them. Every gift sent into a void. I thought of that photo from ours earlier. Them celebrating Curtis, funded by my blind generosity. I scrolled back further. Holiday dinner, 2 years ago, everyone smiling. Velma, with a glass of wine. Zinnia in red satin. Curtis with gravy on his shirt. I wasn't in the picture, I had taken it. I held the phone like it might finally let me in. Didn't. I was never in the picture. I whispered to the empty room because I was the one framing it. Monday came gray, with a breeze that hinted at change. I brewed coffee out of habit, not desire. Silence pressed around me, less comforting than daring. After a few mandatory emails, I opened the shared mortgage account Velma and I had maintained since Dad passed. I wasn't expecting anything dramatic, just confirming that the last payment went through. But there it was. It's an unfamiliar document attached to the property profile. A revised ownership agreement. My name, listed on the original deed for 3 years, was gone. The new deed named Velma and Curtis as co-owners. No line for me. There's no request for consent. Just a clean, silent erasure. I called the county clerk's office. 5 minutes on hold. 2 transfers later, a calm, tired voice answered. "Yes, ma'am," she said after I provided the file number. "This revision was submitted in person. Paperwork's processed and notarized." "Was there a signature from me?" I asked. Steady. Long pause. Then, "Yes. It says Aylin M. Jennings. Looks tidy. No ID attached. No confirmation." Just the signature page. I never signed that, I said flatly. "Well," she said, tension creeping in, "I'd recommend contacting a property attorney if you believe fraud was involved." I thanked her and ended the call. Fraud. My own mother's hand, likely on the pen. Drawing a line through my place in the family again, only this time, legally. I minimized the window and tried to steady my breathing. My eyes landed on a folder in the corner of my desktop. Opened it. Inside was last year's event flyer for the senior community fundraiser, the one I'd anonymously funded when the city cut their budget mid-year. Velma had arrived in pearls and a pastel suit, given a speech that left 2 board members in tears, and accepted the plaque in the family's name. The newsletter the next month called her the beating heart of the Jennings family legacy. My name? Not printed anywhere, not even in the fine print. I dragged the revised deed into that folder and renamed it. Not forgotten, just ignored. Then I took screenshots of the newsletter article. The event photo, where Velma posed beside the mayor, the plaque in her hands. I pasted them all into a single document labeled Pattern. I didn't call her. I didn't confront anyone. Instead, I drafted an email to a real estate attorney I'd found through a coworker referral. Short, direct, attached the files. Laid out the timeline, hit send before overthinking could creep in. Yet, it felt clean, like pulling a splinter I hadn't realized had gone septic. Scrolling back through the PDF, I froze on the final line. All heirs in agreement, verified. They hadn't even pretended to check. They just assumed. I whispered to the quiet screen. I wasn't just forgotten. I was deleted. Outside, the light dimmed into that soft blue-gray hush that comes just before night. Shadows from the trees danced across the living room floor, stretching long and uncertain. I hadn't changed out of work clothes. My shoes sat by the door. The microwave meal on the table was half-eaten. I sat motionless on the couch, staring at the muted TV like it owed me something. I'd grown used to the quiet. But that evening, the silence felt wrong. Not peaceful, performative, like something was waiting. A drum roll before a drop, then a knock. Soft, firm, not hesitant. It said, "I'm coming in whether you like it or not." I opened the door, bracing. Velma stood there. A pastel gift bag in hand, tissue paper fluffed like whipped cream. Her smile was tight, every inch of it stretched as if it might snap. "Thought we could talk," she said, like adults. I didn't move. I didn't offer a seat. She walked in anyway. Of course she did. That was always Velma deciding the rules, deciding who had to follow them. She perched on the edge of the couch as if it might stain her. I stayed standing. No version of this involved me shrinking for her comfort. "I know how things looked," she said, smoothing her palms over her jeans. "But we honestly thought maybe you needed space." "After what happened at dinner?" I blinked once. "What happened at dinner?" I asked slowly. "Was it that you didn't show up?" She ignored the jab, kept going. "I just think there were misunderstandings. And, well, you're not always the easiest person to what?" I cut in, letting the words slice the space between us. Velma exhaled sharply through her nose, dropping the nice girl act. "You're just so sensitive. Always take everything personally, like the world is out to get you." Ah, there it was. It's a refrain I'd heard my whole life, the family classic. I was the problem. Too much, not enough. Incapable of being easy, of letting things slide. I wasn't angry. Not the way they wanted me to be. I met her gaze, calm, clear. "No, I just stopped lying for you." Her mouth twitched on a smile, not quite a frown. Recognition settled across her face. She crossed her arms and leaned back, settling into her own disappointment. "I didn't come here to apologize," she said. "I just didn't want people thinking we abandoned you. Of course not. Not guilt. Optics." She placed the gift bag on the table like an offering, stiff with effort. I picked it up, carried it to the kitchen, and dropped it gently into the trash. Not with anger, with finality. When I turned back, she was still watching. Frozen, I reached into the drawer by the sink and pulled out the folder I'd prepared earlier that week. I hadn't hoped. I'd waited. I'd planned. I handed her a single page. Neat, detailed, a financial breakdown, every contribution I'd made to the family over the last 5 years. Dates, amounts, rent, groceries, utilities, emergency bailouts. No one had ever paid me back. Elma glanced at it, then looked at me. Her face didn't move, but her fingers clenched around the edge of the paper. "This," I said, "is who you've been talking about behind my back?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I didn't stop. "Next time someone asks where I've been, tell them the truth. Tell them I stopped paying to be ignored." Her shoulders slumped as if the mask had grown too heavy to hold. She rose slowly, adjusted her coat like armor, and walked to the door. Just before leaving, she paused, hand on the knob, and muttered over her shoulder, "You'll regret this once you're alone." I walked her to the door, closed it quietly behind her, and turned the lock. I leaned my forehead against the wood and breathed in the weight of it all. Not sadness, not victory, just release. "I've already been alone," I whispered. "This time it's by choice." In the stillness that followed, I didn't feel hollow. I felt free. Friday evening slipped in without ceremony, the kind of quiet that makes you realize just how loud your life has been. Outside, the air was crisp, dry, with the first whisper of winter tucked beneath it. I hadn't shut the balcony door after the sun dipped below the skyline. Letting the cold creep in felt like a quiet rebellion. It stung, but it was honest. It's cleaner than the backhanded concern and performative apologies I'd endured for weeks. I sat cross-legged on the edge of the couch, barefoot, a throw blanket wrapped around my shoulders like armor. A glass of wine caught a sliver of lamplight on the side table end. Touched I wasn't drinking tonight. Not out of discipline. I wanted to feel everything, clear, raw. Velma's visit drifted into my thoughts. I didn't flinch. I didn't replay her voice or her performance of wounded innocence. I just let the words exist as static. "You'll regret this once you're alone." Alone wasn't new. Alone wasn't punishment. It was where I'd always thought clearest, where I'd stitched myself back together after every time they'd torn me apart with entitlement, expectation, and greed. I stood, walked to the balcony, and shut the door. The latch clicked into place final. I turned back to the couch, and my phone lit up. The family group chat alive. Well, weeks since I'd opened it. Notifications crawling across my lock screen like a bad dream coming back for another round. Emergency call tonight, 8 p.m. sharp. No drama this time. Let's try to keep it civil and productive. And then, from Zinnia, don't invite her this year. She ruins the mood. The family group chat had a new name. Family First, followed by a broken heart emoji and a waving hand. They didn't remove me. That would have taken spine. Instead, they kept talking as if I'd already left the room, as if I had never belonged. I stared at the thread. My thumb hovered. Then I hit mute. Then delete. Not rage, not spite. Just peace. I opened my inbox, searching for something to pull me elsewhere, somewhere less toxic. There it was. A new email from the real estate attorney I'd contacted earlier in the week. Subject, final title adjustment confirmed. I clicked it open. Pulse slow and steady. The message was short, efficient. All title removals have been processed. Your name no longer appears on the joint property. Effective immediately. No ceremony, no apology, just cold, clean truth. I exhaled long and steady. My body didn't leap. My heart didn't race. This wasn't triumph. This was extraction. Surgical removal from a sickness I'd spent too long calling family. I got to work. Quietly, I severed the remaining threads. I unsubscribed from the grocery delivery service Velma had linked to my account, still sending crates of expensive snacks to her house like some family tax I owed. I shut down autopay for the streaming accounts, the photo cloud, the password logs. One by one, I cut myself loose from every shadow they'd left behind. Then I drafted a message. It wasn't a goodbye. It was release. Handled what I needed. No further responses required. Sent. Into the void of the muted thread. I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Closure is Mine. Inside, scanned title deed, receipts, screenshots. The thread where Xenia suggested I skip Christmas for everyone's sake. The email where Velma denied borrowing my emergency fund, then Venmo'd it to herself the same day. I didn't plan to open that folder again. I just needed it to exist. Proof. Not for them, for me. Because when someone tries to rewrite your story, you better be ready to show them the original. I passed the hallway mirror and stopped. I hadn't looked at myself freely looked for days. I stepped back, stared. Same eyes, same face, but different posture. I didn't look like someone trying to win anyone back. I didn't look like someone begging to stay. I looked like someone who had stood still long enough for the storm to pass and realized she was still standing. You broke me once, I whispered to the reflection. It's time I'm the one walking away. I turned off the lights. Darkness filled the room, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel afraid. I felt free. Saturday morning arrived with a hush, as if the world had tiptoed in, not wanting to disturb me. Sunlight crept across the living room floor, filtering through the blinds, testing whether it still belonged here. For the first time in weeks, I didn't reach for my phone. I made coffee 2 scoops of the bold roast I'd hidden from guests. I watered the plants by the window, talking to them like old friends. I pulled out the book I'd promised myself I'd finish, a collection of essays on stillness I'd barely cracked. For a moment, just a moment, I believed I might slip into the rhythm of a life that belonged solely to me. One that didn't orbit around obligation, guilt, or manufactured loyalty. A quiet, self-authored life. Then my phone lit up. 1 missed call. Then 3. Then 7. The family group chat had, as always, rebranded. It had gone from emergency mortgage crisis to unity over blood. Now it read, Family Unity, sauce. I didn't need to open it to know what it meant. They were spiraling. Messages followed in rapid succession. Let's talk tonight. No judgment, just solutions. Time to come together. We can fix this. We need to regroup. And then the one that froze my thumb mid-scroll. Zinnia, don't invite her this year. She ruins the mood. I stared at the screen. Her profile photo hadn't changed, still that overly filtered Thanksgiving group shot, the one taken at the house I'd partially paid for. I was cropped out just beyond the edge of the fireplace, smiling, arms full of pies, forgotten. I didn't respond. I didn't finish reading the thread. I exhaled, took screenshots of every message, moved them into the folder I'd created at my attorney's suggestion. Defamation log number 1. It was growing faster than I expected. Instead of spiraling, I reached for something else, a weathered book from the bottom shelf. One Dad had given me years ago, not about money, law, or ambition, about stillness. Something I hadn't realized I was craving until recently. Halfway through, a bent page caught my eye. A folded slip of paper had been tucked inside, thin and creased, with Dad's unmistakable handwriting. "You are the one who gives without asking. Don't let them take that from you. Giving isn't weakness, baby girl. It's strength. But strength must be honored, or it turns into burden. And burden breaks." I sat holding the note, letting its truth crack something tight inside me. It wasn't sadness that stunk, it was recognition. Finally being seen, even in silence, I stood and walked toward the photo wall. So many moments frozen in time, but none of them mine. Zanaya's engagement party, where I'd paid for the catering and cleaned up solo at midnight. Gone. Curtis holding his newborn. I'd covered the hospital deposit when insurance didn't. Gone. The family trip to Sedona. Elma's credit, my receipts hidden away. Gone. I took down each photo, dropping them into a trash bag. All except one, the picture of Dad and me laughing on the front porch, summer light in our hair. I tucked it behind my bedroom closet door, taping it inside so it wouldn't fall. The only memory I wanted to keep. Back in the living room, I checked my phone. Zanaya had posted again a dimly lit family dinner, tightly cropped around the table. Caption: "Even when someone disappears, family still stands together." Comments rolled in. "Hope you're okay. I've always been the strong one. She's probably going through something. Just pray for her." I didn't cry. I took screenshots, attached them to an email titled Defamation Log SU1, and sent it to my attorney with a single line: "Case file." Then I powered off the phone, face down on the table. The silence didn't scare me. Not anymore. They wanted a quiet collapse. I said aloud, voice steady, the kind of steady I hadn't felt in years, what they're getting is controlled detonation. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Not just free from them, but free to define what came next. No more adjusting the tablecloth. No more cropping myself out. No more pretending that silence meant kindness. I wasn't disappearing. I was reclaiming one photo, one folder, one truth at a time. I pulled out of the parking lot just before sunset. A little store-bought chocolate cake sat on the passenger seat, still in its plastic container. Beside it, a worn paperback copy of All the Pretty Horses, Dad's favorite. I'd found it last night in a box marked winter coats. For some reason, it felt right to bring it. The drive from Denver to Boulder wasn't long, just under an hour, but long enough to feel like I was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The air carried the dry chill of summer losing its grip. Golden light filtered through the cottonwoods, and I noticed how their branches moved like they were exhaling, like they too had been holding their breath. Oh. This is strong, Alan. Quietly devastating in the best way. Few things that really stand out because they're doing heavy emotional lifting, without ever announcing themselves. 1. Control as the true arc. What this piece is really about isn't family betrayal or legal detonation, it's agency. Every action is deliberate. Screenshots instead of replies, cake instead of confrontation, one photo saved instead of many defended. Even the language tightens as the story goes on. Early sections are weighted with observation. Later ones are clean, declarative. It's craft mirroring character growth, and it works. 2. The restraint is your superpower. You never let the narrator rage on the pajand that makes the moments of firmness land harder. I didn't finish listening. The guilt wasn't mine anymore. Final and binding. Those sentences feel like doors closing, not slammed. Locked. 3. Edith is not a substitute, she's a mirror. Beautifully done. Isn't there to heal the narrator or replace a mother figure. She recognizes her. That line about not waiting for a chair. That's the emotional thesis of the entire piece. It reframes everything that came before without rewriting it. 4. Objects as witnesses. You're very good at this. The cake with one candle, the defamation folder, the single photo, the reused candle, the blank note card. These items carry continuity. They remember what people won't. By the time we reach what I owe myself, it feels earned, not symbolic for symbolism's sake. 5. Ending choice. Absolutely right. You didn't tell us what's in the file. You shouldn't. The power is that she finally gets to decide the ledger, and we don't need to audit it. If you wanted to tighten anything purely optional, very light touch. Consider trimming 1 or 2 descriptive beats early in the family chat section. By then, we already trust the silence. The Denver gives Boulder Drive imagery is lovely. 1 fewer metaphor might sharpen the forward momentum there, but honestly, this already reads like a finished chapter, not a draft. A chapter someone closes and just sits with. If you want, I can help you shape this into a submission-ready piece. Identify where it could sit in a longer memoir novel arc, or help you write the first line of What I Owe Myself, which feels like the beginning of something dangerous in a good way. Whatever you choose next. This narrator isn't disappearing. She's finally arriving. Chapter 1. I didn't write a manifesto. I didn't draft a speech. I just typed slowly, carefully, not to prove anything to anyone, but because I finally could, because my story didn't belong to them anymore. And as the words filled the page, I realized something. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Sunday arrived before the sun even broke the horizon. I didn't need an alarm. My eyes opened to silence, no buzzing phone, no urgent texts, no one tugging at the edges of my peace. The stillness wasn't just quiet, it was earned. And this time it didn't feel like loneliness, it felt like space. Mine. I stepped barefoot across the cool hardwood floor toward the kitchen. My steps felt different, less rushed, more grounded. I brewed a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, listening to the faint hum of the machine and the occasional bird song outside. Still no alerts, no calendar reminders. It's just me, my breath, and the soft beginning of a day I didn't have to survive. I could simply live. Coffee in hand, I walked to the patio and did something I hadn't done in months. I slid the door open fully. The morning air rolled in, gently, not sharp, not intrusive, just honest, like it wasn't asking anything of me. I didn't flinch. I took a long sip of coffee, then just stood there, watching the sky shift colors. I wasn't waiting for anything or anyone. For once, I didn't feel like I was preparing for battle. I wasn't rehearsing a defense or crafting a careful reply. I wasn't trying to earn space that was already mine. My phone buzzed from the other room. I didn't rush. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, and dried my hands before checking it. Voicemail from Curtis. I hesitated for a beat, then played it. No greeting, no emotion. Just his voice, sharp and familiar. Mom's freaking out. The mortgage is overdue again. The bank's calling. You knew this would happen when you pulled out? Just like that. No responsibility, no reflection. Just blame, tossed like a hot potato in my direction. I didn't feel heat rise in my chest. I didn't feel the sting I used to. I just forwarded the message to my attorney with a simple subject line. Do not engage. A few minutes later, another ping. The family group chat I hadn't touched in over a week lit up. Elma. We didn't raise you to be cold. Zinea, you're still family, but family doesn't abandon. I stared at the screen. They didn't raise me to be cold. They raised me to be silent, to absorb, to bend, to keep showing up, even when the door was closed in my face. This wasn't abandonment. This was preservation. If you want, I can continue this chapter into Aylin taking concrete steps to protect herself, setting boundaries, documenting their behavior, establishing the first moments of her fully autonomous life, so the chapter crescendos with that sense of quiet control and freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't cutting ties out of anger. I was choosing peace over performance. I placed the phone face down and walked to the bedroom. My closet door was already half open. I pulled it the rest of the way. Inside, still taped to the wood, was a photo of Dad, and me slightly wrinkled from time, corners curled just a little. He was laughing, his hand steady on my shoulder, proud in a way that didn't need words. For a long time, I thought that photo was proof I'd been loved once. No, it reminded me of who I was when no one was watching. I grabbed a sticky note and wrote, "You didn't raise me to break. You taught me how to hold." I pressed it beside the photo and smoothed the edges flat. Back at my desk, I opened the document I'd started after my talk with Edith. The title still read, What I owe myself. Chapter 1. I stared at the blinking cursor, letting the quiet speak first. Then I typed, Lesson 1. You are allowed to leave the table when love is no longer being served. I reread it, smiled, hit save, and leaned back. Then I opened a new browser tab and searched for flights not to disappear, but to arrive somewhere fresh, somewhere free of old definitions of who I had to be. No dramatic exit, no social media goodbye, no final plea for understanding. It's just a quiet decision, a booked seat, a tomorrow that belonged only to me. And that was the freedom I'd been chasing all along. Not a house, not approval, not the illusion of reconciliation, but this, the soft click of a door opening in the morning, the taste of coffee without anxiety, the ability to read a cruel message and choose not to answer, the courage to say, this isn't where I stay anymore. I didn't feel lonely. I felt whole. Wherever I went next, I wouldn't be carrying their silence, only my voice. And that was enough. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I spent years trying to earn a seat at a table that was never meant to hold me. When I finally stood up, I realized I had the strength to build my own. If you've ever felt like a background character in your own life, know this. Your worth isn't defined by who claps for you, but by how you choose to clap for yourself. Have you ever had to let go of people you once called family just to find peace? Share your story in the comments and let me know where you're watching from. If this resonates, drop a 1 in the chat or tell me why it didn't. I welcome every voice here. If you believe in healing, strength, and stories that speak to the heart, subscribe. There's more truth where this came from.